today I'm in conversation with Mr. Ashwajit Singh right here. He's been listed by Owler as the #1 CEO in Delhi, and he is the founder and managing director of IPE Global, which is a leading development sector consulting company in India and South Asia. They have done a lot of development work and work closely with many international organizations like the World Bank, ADB, and UN agencies. So I'd like to ask him one question on leadership. And do you really feel, Ashwajit, that leadership is something which is not the domain of any one specific industry, but irrespective of what you're doing or where you are, leadership as a skill is important?
Absolutely. I think leaders are really people who are able to motivate and inspire their teams to achieve objectives across industries. I don't think a leader necessarily needs to really be from that particular domain. A leader is a leader across domains, whether it's manufacturing, consulting, politics, sports, or whatever you may require. For instance, a leader it would help if he had some domain expertise as well, but a leader is somebody who at the end of the day hires very good people, is surrounded by a team probably more competent than him as far as the technical delivery or the domain delivery is concerned. But the leader's role is really to be able to motivate his team, to inspire them, to regularly communicate with them, to make sure that they all have aligned objectives for the organization, to give them regular feedback, and really try and get the best out of their team. So I think a leader is required across sectors and can't be really pegged to one particular domain or expertise.
Ashwajit, could you tell us a little about IPE Global and what are the kind of services that are provided, how long it's been in business, and how many employees do you have?
IB actually completed 20 years in operation. We're in our 21st year, so we are not a very young company. And it's a very interesting sort of story how we got started. We were actually, a few of us alumni from the London School of Economics were sitting after one of the LSE events, and I'm talking about 21 years ago, and talking about where are there possible gaps or requirements in the Indian scenario as far as advisory services are concerned. And we felt that based on that discussion, we felt that you've either got consulting companies at the top end, the well-known international consulting companies who focus and work a lot on policy. Very often the policies are well made, but at times disconnected with the ground level reality. It's very easy coming up with a policy and saying you need to do ABC, like do away with subsidy, come up with user charges, etc., and you'll improve your GDP. That's easier said than done. There are a lot of social and political issues on the ground. On the other hand, you had a lot of NGOs who were working at the ground level, doing some good pieces of work, but more often than not disconnected with the big picture of the policy. So we thought that there is a huge vacuum of an advisory firm which could work both at the policy as well as at the implementation level, and through the experience at implementation, improve policy, and by testing the policy also take it back to the ground level. So that's how we set up IPE. It was a small startup with just about 4 people. We started working on assignments where we thought were reform oriented, policy to implementation oriented, and then we started moving towards working for the international aid agencies, the World Bank, DFID, USAID, the UN agencies, Asian Development Bank. So that's how we sort of started working. Till date, we've done more than 850 projects, both small projects as well as 5 or 7 year long-term projects. We've expanded sectorally. We now work across sectors. We work in health, in nutrition, in governance, in social economic empowerment, education, skills, urban reforms, urban infrastructure, monitoring and evaluation. So we work across sectors. So that was the first sort of decision we took, that we'll not stay in one sector, but work in the entire development or social sector. So that's what we're doing. The second decision we took was that we will also look at diversifying our portfolio and not really work with any one single bilateral or multilateral agency. So we work across all the names I took, as well as we work for the Niti Aayog and the governments, both in India and overseas. And the third decision we took was that we will, based on the strong South South experience. When I say South, that means the Indian experience in developing sector. We will also try and replicate that experience in some of the other developing economies, especially in Africa, South Asia, and Southeast Asia. So we also expanded geographically over the years. Today we have about 1,100 people. We have 8 international offices. We acquired a company in London 5 years ago, so we have a company called Triple Line Consulting, based in London, 30 people. We also set up our own company in Africa, and we are working in nearly every state in India.
And other than London and Africa, which are the other territories?
We have offices in Addis Ababa, in Ethiopia. We have an office in Nairobi, Kenya. We have an office in Manila, Philippines. We have an office in Yangon in Myanmar, an office in Dhaka, in Bangladesh, and an office in Kathmandu in Nepal. So these are the countries we are working in, and we've got the same areas and the same kind of clients in most of these places.
That's actually very, very impressive. Just the sheer numbers and the kind of work that you're doing, it's very impressive.
I think it's a good sector to be in, and in fact, when we talk about India exporting a lot of expertise, the first thing that comes to our mind is the IT services. But where today you can really be up against IT services from other developing countries or developed countries as well. But I think one of the big things that we need to actually export from India are the best practices and the learning we've learned over the years in the social and economic sector, because I think amongst the developing countries, India is a country that's actually made a lot of strides. And if we can replicate this South-South experience in Africa and Southeast Asia, it would add a lot of value.
Definitely, definitely. I think you're one of a kind that I've met.
It's a very
I'm
niche.
sure there are others.
It's a very niche area, and I think it's actually the best of both. You're working very closely with governments and aid agencies, but still working from outside the government. So in terms of sheer impact, the potential of having an impact, especially in some of these social sector schemes, and we did a back of the envelope sort of calculation. We've probably impacted more than 300 million lives through some of these programs that we are doing across the world.
That's a huge number, 300 million.
It is very satisfying and enriching, I think.
Yes. So Ashwajit, can you tell us a little about something maybe from your childhood or your professional journey, something which has really been inspiring for you or will inspire others?
I think probably what I would say, I'm born and brought up in Delhi, studied at modern school in Sri Ram College of Commerce, then did my chartered accountancy at A.F. Ferguson, then went on to do a master's at the London School of Economics. So I would probably say the one thing that I always sort of enjoyed doing was that, besides of course focusing on academics, I always enjoyed doing a lot of co-curricular activities, and I think that's what sort of been good for me. I was very active in organizing events at right from the school level. When I went to the college, I went on to become the president of the university of the college SRCC. I went on to be on the council of the CA Institute. So I've always enjoyed going beyond just pure academics, and I think that probably also gave me that confidence to probably be an entrepreneur and confidence to be able to build and carry teams.
Yes, and in fact, I do believe you're a recipient of many awards as well. So could you just touch upon one or two?
I have been fortunate to get some awards recently. This year in April, I got the Distinguished Alumni Award from Mr. Arun Jaitley, probably amongst the last public functions that he attended. I have from the former Prime Minister of India, I did get the Global Punjabi Award as well. I have during my academic days, I have got the President's Gold Medal for the Company Secretary Final, and some of the other awards. I got the Best All-Rounder Award at school. So I have over the years been fortunate enough to get some recognition as well.
And you've also done a lot for your alumni, both in school and university.
I enjoy that, yes, of course. You know that I'm currently chairing the LSE London School of Economics Alumni Group here in Delhi. I have been a past president of the Modern School Old Students Association and have been quite active at the college as well.
You haven't left anyone.
I enjoy these things. I actually enjoy organizing events, meeting people, and trying to sort of. It's a ever learning kind of a process. You meet people, interact with them, you always sort of learn things, and you can also get platforms to organize events as well.
Absolutely. So, could you share any one of your role models and why they inspire you?
If I was to look at role models, I would probably say internationally Warren Buffett.
Right.
Because the way he's expanded in a very humble, at the same time showing the qualities of a great leader, doesn't micromanage, doesn't get into day-to-day operations. I understand he just sends out one letter every year to his all the companies with his clear objective and charter. And doesn't micromanage them, but at the same time a very shrewd investor, invests in the right kind of companies, helps build up those companies. And I think perhaps the biggest point of admiration is he's given it all back into, or bulk of it into philanthropy, without really uh, lending his name, or wanting to get the fame that you can get through philanthropy. So I think he's a definitely a role model internationally. Within India, I would say probably the closest that would come to him would be the Tata Group, Ratan Tata. I mean, they've done the same thing. Most of the revenues that they're earning, profits that they're earning, are being plowed back into philanthropy. So I think he'd probably be a role model in India.
Oh, lovely. And I'm sure there's so much on your plate, but what do you do to unwind and what kind of uplifts your mood?
I like traveling, so I definitely with the family and friends, I take up a couple of breaks during the year. So that's something I really enjoy doing. And I'm fortunate to have a good circle of friends and a very strong family support as well. So enjoy spending time with my family and friends. So I'm quite a sort of relaxed person. I mean, an enjoyable evening would be with a few close friends, and probably traveling with friends and family.
Yeah, that's a great way to unwind. How would you sum up your leadership style in one line or two lines?
I think a leader's role is to inspire and motivate people. I like to be inclusive. I like not to micromanage my colleagues. I like to give proper and timely feedback to them, set an overall sort of vision, and then sort of give them a feedback on performance. I'd like to definitely not compromise on values, and that's something that needs to be percolated down. And above all, I think I'd like to treat all my colleagues as one large extended family, be sensitive to their concerns, and be human. I think those are some of the things that I would definitely like to do, and perhaps that's part of my leadership style.
So would you agree that it's important to have good energy as a leader?
It's important to have good energy, and it's important to be able to pass on that energy to your people. There's no point in a leader being very energetic and good if he's not able to motivate his people. So I think a lot of that is not having good energy yourself, but being able to pass it on to your colleagues.
So you've just actually answered my next question in a way, but I will ask it anyway. What are the essential qualities that you feel are something that a leader should have, which will make him a value add to the organization?
A leader should be somebody who has a reasonable amount of technical expertise or domain expertise, a reasonable amount. I'm not saying he needs to be an expert. He should know enough of the sector he is in to be able to understand what his staff's talking about. He should hire well. If you get your hiring wrong, whatever amount of investment you might do in training, capacity building, you're not going to get the same kind of results. A good leader, somebody is probably at the end of the day surrounded by people more intelligent than him, if you'd ask me, or more capable than him in a lot of ways in their own respective fields. So that's critical. Getting them involved in decision taking, collaborating between teams. That's very important. And giving them timely feedback and clear targets. You have to communicate what you expect from your team, and if they are sort of going towards that or not going towards that, it's important to communicate that to them. And of course, continuously learning both yourself as well as having enough learning for your team as well.
Okay, so we do see in society a lot of leaders who have great IQ. But do you feel also equally that it's important for a leader to build great EQ and people? Because sometimes people and leaders forget that.
Of course it is.
What are the best practices that you've built into your organization which motivates the team and helps the team grow to the next level?
Culture is, I think, the backbone of any organization. So if you ask me what is it that I think we're different or we'd like to sort of keep intact with our culture, we are a very open office. We are an office where we're not really putting a lot of pressure, but at the same time we're sensitive to our people's needs. We have a value driven approach. We have what we call the 2 IPL, which is integrity, innovation, passion, perseverance, and learning. Those are values we want everybody in our company to follow. We have a number of mechanisms to actually get a feedback from people, not only on their own performance, but also the performance leaders. We have a 360-degree sort of feedback process in office, which we without taking names, we make public so everybody knows how they are performing against that. We have a lot of mechanisms of interacting with people. We have regular town halls. We have enough employee engagement. We have regular capacity building and learning engagements with each other. So these are some of the things we do. We have recently, about a year ago, also started what we call a YLP program, which we call a Young Leadership Program for our next generation of leaders, where we ran a process and we selected 10 of our younger leaders. We have a separate YLP scheme that's now in place, and they are giving more responsibility and being given a better exposure to be able to take on future leadership roles.
Oh, I love that. What is the one mistake you witness leaders or team members making more frequently than others?
Perhaps moving away from your core values and your core strengths. I've seen a lot of leaders, if they've ended up expanding, doing well, very often they forget their roots. They become greedy. They try to move into areas which they don't really have an understanding or expertise in, try to expand too fast without really stabilizing the systems. That's definitely a mistake we've seen a number of times people making. So probably that's something one would always want to be cautious about.
And what advice would you give to someone who's just been recently elevated to a leadership title or position?
Don't let that role go to your head. Don't forget your roots. It's very often I've seen people on their way up ignoring the people who they are passing, but they have to be careful that you don't know when you're going to be needing them on your way down. So never forget your roots and keep learning and innovating.
And being a leader is also very tough. Like, people look at the outside and think it's very, very glamorous, and it's a powerful position to be in. But if you are in the position, there's a lot of stress and pressure and a lot of responsibility. So from a leader's perspective, how would you advise another leader to continue to stay motivated in that role?
One is, of course, learning. Learning is an unending process, attending executive courses, meeting with other leaders, meeting with the people, getting to understand what's happening at the top end as well as the bottom end of your business. That's very important to be able to motivate yourself. Nothing is permanent, neither success nor failure. Don't let success go to your head, and there is nothing as failing unless you quit. So don't quit. There will be challenges, and there are challenges every other month, every other year, every other business cycle, but you have to keep explaining the challenges to your team and trying to face those challenges with your team. So success and failure are both temporary. So you have to just make sure you don't give up.
What's your vision, or what is the next goal that you see for yourself or for the organization?
For the organization, I would like to continue our growth into both nationally as well as international market. We are right now about 70% work in and around India, 30% outside India. I'd probably want to make it 50-50 over a period. We'd like to actually take some of the best practices of India to other parts of the world. We'd like to be known as an ideas powerhouse, as an innovative cutting edge company in the development and social sector who's able to provide innovative solutions. Our sector, a lot of is people driven right now, would like to make it a lot of, would like to get in some systems and technology as well. That's an area we need to focus on because you can't ignore technology. Would like to maintain the same kind of culture, and very important for me to create more leaders both within the organization and hopefully leaders who would at some stage leave the organization and go and create bigger organizations and would continue to be leaders. So that's as far as the company is concerned. Personally, would want to focus a lot more on knowledge and research. Would like to give back to society. I've already set up a philanthropic organization which is going to get, I'm going to be transferring some funds into that to do some philanthropy, as well as we'll also be doing a lot of CSR work within the company as well.
Thank you so much for your time and for sharing your perspective on leadership.
Thank you so much.